Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to week 4 of Modiragatsi. It is really a privilege for us to have you here again this week, and we are really seeing a lot of potential in all of you. We enjoy seeing how you explore through the content and how you ask intelligent questions that our student assistants are struggling to answer as well. And also to our personal development coaches, the K2 Kids team, the questions you're asking them are really good questions. So keep up the good work. And I hope that you ask a lot of questions this afternoon. This week we start a new theme. So I'm excited that we will be looking at a new topic since you learned so much in the past 3 weeks, to see how you progress in the next 2 weeks, since computational thinking is one of the critical digital skills that you will require for life in our digital world. So this week, in our technical content, we will be focusing on computational thinking, and then just after my short introduction, we will move on to our personal development topic of the power of words, body language, and tone of voice, which is really, really important and can change a lot in terms of how you are understood. So I am excited to hear what our team has planned for you. So remember that we're in week 4 of 12, and that in the 6 topics, we are now done with design thinking, computational thinking now. Then in 2 weeks' time, we'll move on to user experience design, then mobile app development, intellectual property protection, and then finally how to pitch your business idea with this new product that you have in mind and that you will be designing as we go along. So when we look at computational thinking, keep in mind that computational thinking is the problem-solving skill of the digital world. So we can't function in this new world of digital everything if we don't have the skill of computational thinking. So as you are playing with us in the next 2 weeks, keep in mind that this is a technique that you can apply to anything and everything in your life. It's not just something that we use in a computer-centric or a computer-driven world. You can apply this when you're solving a math problem or when you're tackling a new physics problem in your science class. So you can apply this logical way of problem solving in such a way that it really helps you to solve your schoolwork problems much easier. And we will use 2 award-winning board games to teach you the logic that is needed to communicate with a computer. And then in week 2, we will have you use that new skill to apply it to real-world problem solving. So you will get real-world problems, and you can also use your own problem that you're solving through your product as well, to really make sure that you're thinking of everything by using this logical way of thinking. So when we look at the computational thinking, there is 5 typical steps. And if you could Google it, you will see that some people say it's 4 and others say it's 6, but these 5 are the ones that most of the literature actually applies. So firstly, you will deal with taking that big problem of yours and decomposing it. So breaking it up into smaller, manageable chunks. So something that you can actually find a problem for, because a lot of the big problems in life feels like something overwhelming, or it's something that you don't have clear or easy to understand solution for. But if you break it down into smaller problems, you can solve these smaller problems individually. Then you will learn how to apply pattern recognition, and your brains are really amazing at it. If you look at any of the examples that I've shared with you on Ifundi, you will see that your brains are really good at seeing patterns and identifying those patterns. So we will see how we could observe those patterns or trends and use that to make the problem easier to understand. Then we will move to the step called abstraction. And there we focus on the things that are important and what are the information that we have that's additional, that's not important, and that makes it the problem fuzzy so that we can ignore that unnecessary information and really just focus on the core important thing. And then next we'll focus on algorithms. So that's the step-by-step solution method to get to the solution. So you can think of something like a recipe where you have to do one thing after the other, and where if you do it in the wrong order, the answer will be totally different or totally wrong. So you developing that algorithm to create a solution where you can solve a lot of different problems with the same recipe, and feed questions and get predictable answers. So that's algorithm design. And then finally, we'll focus on generalization. So how to apply that solution to other kinds of problems. So that's the 6 steps of 5 steps of computational thinking that you'll learn over the next 2 weeks. Then remember to stay connected for support. There are still a few of you that hasn't started anything in terms of the assignments on Ifundi. So please make sure that you sign in, that you use your groups to ask for assistance, and that you get going. We will leave the assignments open for you to accept late submissions, but it really becomes very difficult for you to catch up if you don't do them. And remember that you have to do all of the assignments if you want to be in the running for the ultimate prize, which is that bursary from Siemens to study engineering, and then also the once-in-a-lifetime trip to Europe, where you get to see a lot of very interesting things. And November will be an awesome time to visit Europe. Remember that the first snow may fall, and we're going to the mountains, so it will be a really awesome experience to travel there at the end of this year. So make sure that you do all of your assignments, because if you don't, you can't qualify for that prize. And then also, I saw that many of you have started receiving your goodie bags. Remember to take some pictures of you using your content of your goodie bag and share that with us on the WhatsApp group. And if you're on social media, share it there as well. I will give a shout out at the end of this session to some of the very active participants that have even started their own Instagram page to share their Modiragatsi journey. So I hope to see some interesting content of them using their goodie bags as well. And I really hope that it sparks your creativity wherever you are. I really try to select some items that you can use every day, and remember that you are creative and that you have the ability to solve any problem that you can observe in your community. So use it as a motivational tool to keep you motivated throughout this problem-solving journey, so that you can get to the final judging stage. Right, so remember that we develop more than just your technical skills, because you as a person are important to us, and you gaining a better understanding of this unique phase of your life is very important. And this week's theme that the Care to Kids team in the Center for Health and Human Performance will give us is the power of words. And that is something that is not only applicable to this stage of your life, it is something that is applicable to all of us through all our lives. And it's something that all of us need to remember as we communicate with others. So I'm looking forward to this session, and I'm going to hand over to Hanli and Laura and Lanique. And take it away, girls. I'm really excited to learn from you this evening.
Thank you. We hope all the learners are also going to enjoy this. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, I hope you can all see it. Right, so far, the CHHP Care to Kids team has shared information on how to power up your body and brain to help you be the change factor within your community. Change happens with a conversation, exchanging ideas, and drumming up new solutions. That requires words, sentences, language, and conversations with others. Nothing can be built without communication. So in the next 3 sessions, we will share the facts and information to help you use conversation as a powerful tool for being the change. So although language is embedded in our neurodevelopment before birth even, we are remarkably unskilled in sharing that with others. We often choose unaware of the emotional effects that they have on others and ourselves too much. In addition, we often adjust our tone of voice, elements of communication that are often more important than the words we actually say. So words have real power. Words control, such as listen, blink, do that, blink twice. Words direct too. It says, we can say, look left, reach up. But words can also calm. Words like breathe, deep, slowly, relax. In fact, words have the power to switch the genes that regulate our physical and emotional stress on or off. Words also have an effect on how the brain makes connections. The right words spoken in the right way can bring us happiness, success, and respect, while the wrong words, or even the right words spoken in the wrong way, can lead to sadness, failure, and conflict. Nothing can be accomplished without using words. So let's try to describe your favorite meal. So we'll think about what I've just said. So I want you to describe your favorite meal without words. So think about your favorite meal. And as you think about it, close your eyes, wipe all the words from your mind as soon as they surface. But describe your favorite meal. Remember, wipe all words from your mind as they surface. What happened? You may have had a picture of the food in your mind and even experienced a feeling or smelled the food, but you cannot communicate that picture without words. Your thoughts are unspoken words. Nothing can be accomplished without using words. So let me hand over to Laura.
Thank you, Andy. So going over onto that, we can also say that words have energy and power as well. So sometimes words just come out and are very much influenced by our emotions at that moment. But are words more powerful than you think? And can words really affect our minds and our bodies too? Well, how about this? Let's think about the way that we talk to others with words. But by saying words, we can also create, we can take action, we can change things, we can build and put in motion events and situations that would not have been if we didn't say those words. So let's think of an example. So you and a friend meet each other and you ask your friend to come over tomorrow at a specific time, let's say 3 o'clock. And this friend agrees. So in that moment, you created a tomorrow at 3 o'clock that wasn't there a few minutes ago. You've also put actions into motion by asking your parents' permission and getting ready for that visit. So tomorrow would happen as it would happen, and out of nothing, you've invented a whole new tomorrow out of what you have spoken today. So you change the day with words. Let's take the simple example of saying yes or saying no. Think about all those times in your life when you have said yes. Really think about those moments. Now consider this. What if you had said no in each of those times? How would your life be different? Would it be different? I think it definitely would. So by saying yes, we move one way into distinct possibilities, actions, and results, and away from others. We move into different situations, different opportunities, different activities, and outcomes just by saying no. So we have to think about the power of yes and the power of no. Words are with us all the time. It creates the energy within your brain to act, create, change, and relate. So that does sound like a bit of a mouthful. So let's see if we can explain.
Right, so words consist of vibration and sound. It is these vibrations that create the energy to foster change. If we think about a word is a combination of sounds, and each speech sound is a sound wave that is converted into an electrical impulse that the brain can interpret. Therefore, words are sound waves that cause energetic vibrations of a series of bones and membranes in your ear. We call that biomechanical energy. And then it continues to the semicircular fluid-filled canals of the inner ear, and it changes to hydraulic energy. Interesting, no? Sure you haven't thought about words in that way. Then these vibrations reach your cochlea right inside your brain, and it converts electrical impulses via 30,000 auditory nerve fibers. Then that informational energy speeds to the brainstem and thalamus in your midbrain, where direction, frequency, and intensity of the sound is perceived. The thalamus is what we call the gateway in the neocortex or in your brain. The thalamus is near the brain center in each cerebral hemisphere, passing information to and from various brain areas. So information is just running along there, passing through that gateway. The thalamus is critical in making a quick, efficient link between the frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes of your brain. That actually means all the different areas of your brain. And that means that your memory's information about the moment and similar moments in the past are linked together. So when you hear that sound right at this place in your brain, that sound is immediately linked to other speech sounds that you've heard before and to the situations where you've heard them, where you've acted on it. So quite interesting, even before it reached the areas of our brain where we actually think about it. So right here in the thalamus, the electric impulses, that is electrical energy, elicit emotion, quick eye and startled body movements, and attention. So your body reacts already, even if your brain doesn't understand the word yet. So if I can summarize, even before you realize the whole meaning of the word, you have an emotional, body, and attentional response to the sound wave generated by the speech sounds in your ears. So generated by a word somebody else said to you. The word traveling to your brain has not yet reached the areas where you understand the word, but still the sound already elicited a feeling to which your body is responding. It is amazing. The energy set in motion by hearing a word now speeds to other areas of your brain, right there from the thalamus, just speeds to other areas of the brain. This crystallizes into perceptions that subtly shape our beliefs and our behavior, even before we really understood the word. The power of words arises from our emotional response when we hear them. Now let's think about that. This is a lot of information, but think about the word fire. So just say the word fire to yourself. Now imagine if you say the word fire while having a braai with friends. Just think about it. Can you get that picture in your head? Okay, now think about sitting in a movie cinema and then think about saying the word fire. What would happen? Now think about sitting in your classroom and saying the word fire. What do you think would happen? So the same word will get 3 different but powerful emotional and energetic reactions. The image of fire and the scene we described, or that you described in your head, will look different in the minds of each of us. So we think we know what the word fire means, but it's not that easy. Fire, although it means something that's burning for us, whenever we think about it, it's influenced, the meaning of the word is influenced by the environment, how we feel at that moment, where we are, who we are with, and the way that it is spoken to us. So from the thalamus, the electrical impulses gets processed by the temporal lobes, which you see on the picture there. In the temporal lobe is the auditory cortex, and it's just below the temples of the head, just around here. The speech sounds are registered as intensity and frequency. The secondary auditory cortex registers tone and rhythm, and the tertiary area gives an overall impression of the sound and links the speech sounds to more brain areas. This happens in a 1/10 of a second. So one of the very interesting parts of this cortex is the fusiform gyrus, which is found in the temporal and occipital lobes. It's right down at the bottom. The fusiform gyrus plays an interesting role in language processing in the brain. This area helps you recognize words and classify things within other categories. And the corresponding area in the right brain is responsible for facial recognition. So now you can see, even before you think about the words, before we have meaning, so many other things are happening. Tone, rhythm, recognizing faces, and starting to classify the words and the sounds that we're hearing. And we think we really understand words well, but yeah, it is an interesting process. So now we get to, from the temporal lobes, we get to other areas of the brain. The brain now knows what the sounds are and where they are coming from. When we hear a word in a familiar language, our brain quickly shifts to pay attention. Then the brain tunes out other noises and processes the speech sounds by turning them into words in the language interpretation area called the Wernicke cortex. That's the orange part of the brain that you see on the picture. The corresponding brain area on the right side interprets tone of voice, humor, and sarcasm. Wernicke and Broca's area is the purple part of the picture that you see there. They are these 2 areas, and also the connecting areas in between. You see all of that, and that's a green area on the slide. They are essential in understanding and speaking words. And these areas are the classic or the important language area. But however, to be able to read, talk, write, other areas of the brain need to function in coordination with that. So it is not true to think that we are only using those areas of the brain to talk and to understand words. We are actually using our whole brain, left, right, and all of the areas in our brain. And as I've shown before, is that we actually are processing words much earlier and understanding a lot of information before we actually get to really understanding the word. Words are not just encoded as labels for concepts. Still, they are stored in brain networks all over your brain and the perceptions and actions relevant to them. So when you listen to words, you've got electric energy that moves to and fro all over your brain from all different parts. And once the primary language areas have assigned meaning to the word, then the words travel to the frontal lobe of your brain to think, assess, and make decisions. Language is a phenomenon of cognition resulting from the complex interaction of neural cells and networks at an alarming speed. In just 600 milliseconds, the human brain can choose a word, apply grammar rules, and send it to the mouth to be spoken very quickly. And we can easily say 2 to 3 words per second, selected from tens of thousands of words in our mental dictionary. It's estimated that adults have around 50,000 words to choose from. Some have more words than others, but yeah, that's more or less an estimate. The result of this incredible speed is that we talk before we think. But we also create energy in a listener within 600 milliseconds that will elicit a feeling and a body response in that person in 100 milliseconds and result in a decision in 10 seconds or less. So can you imagine? Just close your eyes and think about the speeds that we are talking about. Imagine the energy flow caused by words between people. So do you feel the urge to duck and dive when you think about all those words and energy flying around? Therefore, we have to take a second and choose words carefully. We have to use our frontal and prefrontal brain areas to think, assess the impact of the words, and decide on the best word to get what you need or to reach your goal. So important. Think before you speak. Let's see if we can demonstrate some of the science to you. Can I ask you to sit back and relax? Take 3 deep breaths. Another one, in and out, and another one. And now yawn a few times. This is one of the most effective ways to reduce physical, emotional, and neurological stress. Now stretch your arms above your head, up, and drop them down to your side. Shake your hands. Gently roll your head around to loosen up your neck and shoulder muscles. Then take 3 more deep breaths. In and out. In and out. And the last one. Now just check your body. How does your body feel? I hope relax. Now listen to this. No! No! No, no, no. No! No, no, no. Now recheck your body. How did you react when you heard and saw those words? Did your eyebrows raise? Did your muscles tighten a little bit? Did you smile or did you tense your face? I bet you tensed your face and you found that there was a little bit of tension in your body.
Okay, so I must say I frowned a little. I knew it was coming and it still gave me that same reaction. So definitely has a physical impact on a person. So science consistently shows that the brain gives more attention to negative words, even when we are unaware that we've heard them. So negative words disrupt our thinking in the frontal lobe and prefrontal cortex and cause negative feelings we instantly then react on. So the energy flow, especially to the prefrontal cortex, slows down and the energy gets stuck somewhere in the midbrain. So the more you hear and say negative words and thoughts, the more you can damage critical structures that regulate your memory, your feelings, and your emotions. So you may disrupt your sleep, your gut-brain connection, and your ability to create playful moments. So that's how powerful a single negative word or phrase you think can be. And if you speak it, more stress chemicals and negative energy will be released. not only in your brain, but also into the listener's brain. So angry and negative words send alarm messages through the brain to partially shut down the frontal lobes. So still, fearful words like sick or lonely or unsure and unafraid causes us to begin to fantasize about negative outcomes. The brain then begins to rehearse counter strategies for these stories in our minds. So the word energy circles around in your mind, causing worry, and eventually you start to kind of feel stuck in that mindset.
So then we think, oh, it's easy. What about the power of the word yes? Just say yes and be positive. We now have an excellent idea of what happens when we hear positive words and phrases using brain scan technology and all kinds of wonderful new neuroscientific methods and imaging techniques. But do you know what the power of the word yes is and of positive words? Not much. Positive words are not a threat to our survival. So our brain doesn't need to respond as rapidly as it does to the word no. This presents a problem because evidence shows that positive thinking is essential for being healthy and performing at our best. So let's read these words out loud, just where you are. So we'll read dysfunctional, sucks, confusion, selfish, lazy, crooks, corrupt. So just sense how much energy you use when you read those words. So let's read the words in the next slide. Read it out loud for yourself. Helpful, healthy, wealthy, capable, determined, invincible. How much energy have you felt when you read these words? So you can see that negative words even have more or carry more energy than positive words. So we will have to find another way of helping our brains to be a little bit more positive. Words themselves do not communicate all the essential positive elements our brains react to, or what we need and what we want to convey to others. The expression we make with our faces, the tone we use when we speak, and our gestures with our bodies are vital to communicating effectively. So that is how we can be more positive, communicate, use words in a more positive way, not just by focusing on positive words, but also adding these elements. We have to know that when we look at how communication impacts on somebody else, it's only 7% of the words that are important. 55% of your body language and 38% is your tone of voice. In fact, your brain needs to integrate both the sounds and body movements of the speaking person to accurately perceive what is meant. Hand gestures and speech originate in the same language-related area of the brain. This overlap between words and gestures appears to be associated with a rare cluster of brain cells called the mirror neurons. Those are the neurons that fire in someone's brain when they make a specific gesture, and then it also causes the same neurons to fire in another person's brain that are observing them. So when I say, wow, and you are doing exactly the same, you say, wow, we've got both our mirror neurons firing away and doing the same thing. Many of these mirror neurons are located in the brain's language centers. They may be crucial for governing our ability to empathize and cooperate with others, which is important if we want to change something in the world. Neuroscientific studies teach us how important it is to pay close attention to the nonverbal messages given to us by others. We must train ourselves to consciously use our facial expression, tone of voice, and body language. Suppose our words and gestures are matched with our positive words. In that case, neural resonance is created between two persons. That means you can work together. And that sparks positive energy for change wherever you find yourself, at school, in your community, at home, doesn't really matter. So, Lanique, the next thing that I thought I was going to hand over to Lanique, but I'm a little bit too early. So let's talk about our tone of voice. Vocal modulations convey emotional context, and they are so powerful that they can actually change how words and meanings are embedded into our memory. A positive or negative memory, or even just no memory. So if I say excellent, okay, how would you remember that? Or if I say excellent, excellent, the pitch inflection makes a huge difference. So if we think about this one, can you read this sentence there? Read it out loud. The ball is round. Now repeat it slowly, but this time cup your hands as if you're holding a large grapefruit. Say, the ball is round. And notice how it changes your imagery and feelings. Okay, so once again, say it out loud. Say, the ball is round, but make a huge arc with your hands and arms. The ball is round. Again, it should feel different, and it should even affect the tone of your voice. When you consciously orchestrate your words with your gestures, you double up the attention of the listener and you improve your persuasive power. So now when I say excellent and I say excellent, that's going to carry a little bit more weight. You're going to remember it better. But if I say excellent, that one you'll definitely remember the best.
Okay, so by shifting our words from anger, negativity, and fear to kindness, optimism, and hope, we actually maximize our potential to succeed at any realistic goal that we genuinely desire. So let's look at some steps. So number one, making your words work. So look up the definition of familiar words and learn a greater depth and appreciation for the meanings by learning new positive words. Number two, no name calling or self-criticism. Be kind and offer yourself the same empathy and compassion you'd extend to anyone else. Number three, resist gossiping and speaking ill of others. Your words can't resonate in anyone else's body but your own. Number four, go on a negativity diet. Instead of saying that a meal was terrible, say, I've had better. You've basically said what you wanted to say without putting any negative energy through your body. You even used a positive word to do it. Number five, boost the positivity energy of words. Use your tone of voice and body language, not too much though. And number six, surround yourself with positive and uplifting words. Put affirmations on sticky notes around your home and say good things about you, your family, and your goals. Wear clothes that have positive messages or phrases on them, and imagine the kind of positive energy you'll be generating for yourself when you're wearing positivity all day long. So, be the change. You have the power to change your world, and use words consciously is one of the quickest ways to shift the energy you bring into your life. So next week, we will be talking more about conversations for optimal performance.
Okay, and with that, we conclude. And if there's any questions, we are happy to answer them.
Okay, great. While we wait for some questions from the I almost said floor, from our virtual rooms, I think I would like to ask you, so can you give some general guidelines for our students that will be making presentations to sell their ideas? So they need to convince someone that their solution is the absolute best one for the specific problem that they've identified. So how can they practically think about preparing for that presentation and using the aspects that you've just touched on to sell their idea?
Sure. Does any of my colleagues want to answer? Okay. Right. So I think that's always the challenge. If you have to pitch your idea, write it down, and the moment you've written it down, you have to read, reread, rethink, and do it over and over again. Make sure that you've chosen the best words. Really look at each word critically, and then pitch your idea to your family members, to your teacher, to others, and ask them about their opinion, what they think, and what they think you can change. Because communication, as we explained today, is not that easy. It's really a process of thinking it through, and that's only the process for a word or a few words. So if you are going to pitch a whole idea, you'll have to really take time and consider each word and also the sentences and the way that you are presenting that to somebody else.
Yeah, sorry, Lenique, you go.
I think something practical maybe for our learners as well, like we've mentioned, it's not just about how you say something, but the body language you also use. So maybe you can, in a practical way, record yourself, make a video of how you will be presenting your idea, and then have a look at that video to see, maybe your stance is a bit off, or you might be talking a bit, too soft, so that you can work and adapt and plan the best possible way you can pitch your idea.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would also be useful to keep this today's presentation in mind in terms of the energy that your words have. What kind of energy does it bring up in you? And then when you present it to your friends and family, what are they feeling when you use those specific words? I think it's important that if you believe in your product or your idea, to convey that through with the energy that you use.
I think something that I would like to add is that frequently when I look at videos of myself, I tend to see how many words I end up repeating. So it's kind of like a crutch or a habit that you form to deal with the stress of talking, especially if you're being recorded. So you tend to see a lot of habits that you have either in terms of words or sounds or specific ways in which you move around. Maybe moving too much while speaking, and that's also very distracting if you're watching a video recording of someone, because again, our brains are so good at seeing those patterns. I remember that sometimes in class I would count how many times a teacher would say a specific word instead of focusing on that word. So it's an unhealthy habit, but our brains tend to go there. So I think that's also something that is very practical to do, and then to unlearn it. Maybe, do you have any guidelines on how to unlearn some of those habits?
I don't know how practical this is, but sometimes when I present myself, I tend to use my hands quite a bit. And right now I'm sitting kind of with my hands between my legs or under my legs just to kind of keep them in place. But I don't know how practical that's going to be if you're standing, or, because that might give off a different impression as well. So I think it will depend on what you're comfortable doing. I don't know if my colleagues have any other ideas.
Well, practice makes perfect. So if you want to change something, you will have to take that decision, make yourself a little note, and find a way to remind yourself to stop doing that. Check while you're talking, go back and say, oh, right, I did that again. Let me do it. Let me change as I continue. And by practicing, we change that behavior. That's the only way.
Yes, Laura, something that I do, because I also use my hands a lot, because I want to draw pictures in the sky. So what I tend to do is I hold on to a pen while speaking, because it grounds me a little bit. It keeps my hands busy, so I'm slightly fidgety, but you can't fidget too much with a pencil or a pen while speaking. But it really helps, so that you only use your hands when you really need to, and not use all the time.
Yeah.
Do we have questions here, Corin? They are giving you a night off this evening. I see they're not asking many questions. I'm going to give Corin the opportunity to think of a question, since as a final year student, she needs to do a presentation quite soon. But maybe, yes, while you're preparing for these sessions, you also put a lot of emphasis into the slides that go along with the words. So maybe that's something that you can give us some input on how you communicate with even your visual aids as well. How do you think about those images when you prepare for these sessions?
Well, I think the very important thing is not to have things cluttered. If you know exactly clarify what you want to say, find out what is the main concept, the main idea. Find a picture that matches that, and then you add one or two to just help you get that concept over. But make the slides simple, and the slides should communicate the essence of a paragraph.
Yes, I agree, and that's why I mentioned it, because often when we have some visual aids or a slideshow, we tend to use it as a crutch and put all the words there that we're going to say, and then everyone focuses on whatever you are going to present, and they read, and they're not focused on whatever you're trying to convey. So it is important to choose your words and your emotions there quite well as well. I tend to go for the emotion that I want to convey with a slide and use that, and maybe just a quote or something that relates to what I'm going to say, but not everything that I want to say when I really want to convey something new. In this slideshow, it's maybe slightly different because we're giving out administrative information at the beginning and the end, but when you're really trying to sell an idea, it's important. Okay, so they started asking questions now. Does using your hands not add gestures to a presentation and make it more interesting?
For sure. When you use your hands, it adds gestures, but you can also say, yes, it really adds an interesting element to your presentation, which that's not going to work. But if you say, yes, that is a great idea. We have to be careful how we use gestures, and that's why we said in the presentation, our words and our gestures have to match. You have to think about it, and it has to come naturally. We shouldn't have too much. That can also be distracting.
Here's another one coming. It's a difficult one. Corin thought of it. Okay, do you have any resources that can be consulted in terms of the best words or tone of voice to be used, especially when a presentation is being prepared?
Well, there's a number of self-help books. I certainly don't have all the titles at hand now, but there are a number of that. There's also some interesting YouTube videos that can help you. And I'm sure that people that are working in communication, like speech-language therapists, communication strategists, all of them can definitely help you with the information to how to use your best words and your best tone of voice.
No other questions. Is there anything that you thought of now as we were talking that you maybe didn't share earlier on that you now think of that you would like to share before we end today slightly earlier? The three of you, I'm asking that to you. Okay, Hadley is frozen, so I don't think she's responding anymore. Her internet gave its best. Okay, cool.
So you have to, the absolute silence that you met with when you talk about. I wonder, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you now.
So I think the thing that strikes me again is that the moment when you talk about words to people and people, when we explain how words work in your brain and what the power of words is, it's our experience that people are very silent after that. They don't ask questions, they don't talk. And I often wonder about that. Is it because it is so new that people think, oh, I didn't know that? Or do they not trust the information that's given? Or is it a question of really thinking, being involved in deep thought about these words, not having realized before the power that we have and the way that we use words? So it's interesting.
I can maybe relate to that in the sense that, or it's something that I don't think you know what I'm going to say. Corin thinks she knows, she can predict what I'm going to say now. But I was quite amazed when I visit a number of different countries where I can almost speak the language. Or I can understand the language, but not necessarily speak it as well. When I go to France, for instance, or to Germany, where I can understand 99% of what's being said, unless it's very contextual. But how you can really follow a conversation from the energy and what the interaction between people without understanding every single word, and how you can fill in the blanks between concepts. And yes, sometimes you understand a concept slightly wrong, but the gist of the communication you still understand, even though you're not fluent in the language. So even yesterday I was at a farm visit on a pig farm, and this farmer was so excited about sharing his experience, and he told me most of the things that he learned from either German or Dutch farmers while visiting Europe, and he was amazed at how much he could learn from them without an interpreter. So I think often, especially when we're speaking to kids, when they don't have as big a vocabulary as we do, or if I use too difficult words when I communicate with you, yes, I'm confusing you slightly, but I think you're still able to figure out what we're saying in general. But I think you made us all aware again that we need to think how we speak. And I think also something that I feel quite strongly about, and it's really not real, it's related but not related, is that we also need to keep in mind that when we are dealing with people who are non-verbal or disabled, but they also understand what you're saying and understand language, even though they're not responsive. And a lot of time we tend to pretend like they don't exist when we speak about them or to them or don't interact with them. And maybe that's something that Ali, you can, in closing, give your a guideline about, just because I think it's something that we haven't touched on, but it's something that is important for all of us to take note of.
I think that's something that people don't think a lot about, is that if a person is nonverbal, because of any neurological issue, maybe because of well, there can be so many reasons for a person not being able to communicate with us or not being able to talk. It doesn't mean that that person is not able to understand words and understand language. They also understand your facial expression and your body language. Remember, we said it's 7% words and the rest is body language and tone of voice. So often we're so dismissive of people that has disabilities or people that cannot communicate as well as we can. And that's a shame. We really need to understand that how we communicate with people, how we interact with our body, with our tone of voice, our facial expression, can build bridges, can help somebody communicate that might not be able to communicate just because they're so stressed and it's so difficult for them to communicate. But if they experience that you are open to them and open to allowing them to try and communicate, you might find that that person is much more able to communicate. And you might find very interesting views, ideas, and yes, so much interesting ideas about the world from people with disabilities, because they experience the world in a different way than able-bodied people experience the world. But all experiences are valid. And yeah, we're not all going to, we all of us are not always going to be strong and healthy and young and vibrant. We're all going to get old and things might happen. And then the value and the gift of communication might be the one thing that we really underappreciate and underappreciate. And we need to just think about it when we interact with people that might not be able to communicate as well as we do. Yeah. So let's don't get too philosophical about this, but it is important, really important.
Yes, so I should have announced it's the end sooner, because now they start asking us questions. So there's a question, when you are mentally ill, is your brain activity lower or disrupted? Or if so, can you then conclude that your mental state influences your ability to communicate with other people?
Yeah, sorry, I can maybe just give a little something on that. So if we are talking about mentally ill, for example, depression or maybe some anxiety, it does, according to cognitive behavior theory, it does impact our brain function. So some authors will say that positive words encourage cognitive brain function, while negative words activate our fight or flight response. So which can slow our cognitive function. So when this response is activated, it can make it very difficult to plan and make decisions, because a different part of our brain is activated. So not like we mentioned before, that prefrontal cortex, we can kind of say that it's offline in a sense when our fight or flight response is activated. So if you think about it, you can kind of say that your activity, or not necessarily the activity, but the functioning of it is a little bit not in its optimal state when you do struggle with depression and anxiety. So yeah, so then we kind of we can't access that part of the brain that helps us think effectively or make the decision or to help us choose those words effectively when we communicate. If that makes sense. I felt like I was jumbled up there. My words were all jumbled now. So I hope that made sense, and I hope it answered your question.
Made sense to me.
Okay.
Lauren, another one? Okay. Thank you so much, Laura, Hanli, and Lenique, for your time and your effort this week. I think this is a vitally important topic to discuss, not just this week, but every week. And like I said, not only when you're a teenager, but it's something that as adults need to remember as well. Even as a parent, I need to remind myself of the way that I interact with my kids. So, well, not just them, my colleagues. I can really affect my colleagues a lot as well. I realized that yesterday when I was so excited about a function that we were hosting the evening, that everyone was smiling after we had a conversation, and it was interesting to see how much of the spirits were lifted in the entire office just because we all got excited, even though most of them didn't know what it looked like, and only I did. So you can really make a big difference in just being positive and using positive words in your environment and change a lot. But also keep in mind that you can do the exact opposite as well. We've had mornings where everyone is complaining and everyone is speaking negatively, and then the day becomes very, very long. So we need to keep that in mind. So thank you to everyone for joining us this week. Thank you for submitting your assignments. If you fall behind, remember tomorrow is a good day to catch up, since we have a school holiday tomorrow, or public holiday tomorrow. And then remember that all of the assignments will stay open until the end of the month, but the end of the month is quite soon. So catch up if you're behind on study unit 1, which is design thinking. And then tomorrow start with computational thinking, the logical way of breaking down your problems into smaller ones that you can actually address in a logical way. So I'm excited to share that technique with you, and I hope that you really see the application of that technique in all of your problems that you need to solve in life, not just the ones that you're entering this competition with. I hope you stay healthy. Keep connecting with us, communicating with us on either the WhatsApp groups or on social media. Otherwise, it feels really one-way communication, and it's draining. So we get energy from interacting with you. So I enjoy your conversations. I enjoy you asking us questions. I enjoy you challenging us, and I hope that you stay tuned and keep at it for the next 8 weeks. I can't believe we're 1/3 through the program this week. So week 4 of 12, it seemed like a long 3-month period, but there's 1/3 of it already over by now. So keep at it, work hard, and good luck. I know it's starting to get tough in school as well in the second term, so please don't give up. That's the most important thing. Good night.